Arnold Palmer is one of the greats of the game, personality-wise and his skill, winning tournaments left, right and center. But what is it that made him so good? Of course, there are multiple facets of why he was so great. So if you're looking for better contact, more consistency, without a ton of faffing about, you're going to love these tips. Let's get into it. There are lots of things that Arnie did, like he even called a book, Hit It Hard. He always gave the ball a positive thump. And how was he able to do that? There's lessons that he did that he had all the way through his career. And it started with his grip. Years and years ago, I read a book by Arnold Palmer, and my dad got it from me from a library. It was a very old book, and I don't remember a ton of it, but one of the main aspects was talking about the grip. Now, there are specifics that we can discuss, but it was more about his intent, and his dad told him that he had to never change his grip because it was the only connection to the club. So his grip was always the first point of focus for him, and he made it work again and again and again. And what he would do is ensure that he had it in the fingers on the palm here, and he would apply pressure so it would be very tight and compact in the fingers. But where a lot of the magic would happen would be as he's taking the right hand grip, he would form a V here, okay? He would form a V, but not bunch up the fingers too much this way. There would actually be a little gap, a bit like a trigger. But that V here and that hold was very intentional, very much a connection, and never ever altered. And by doing that, just by having this intent, can make so much difference. It's not about a perfect grip, it is about the pressure and your intention and understanding that that is the connection to this. And the more we can sort of control and feel the grip, feel the weight of the club in the grip, in the hands with that firm movement, the better control you're going to have of that club face. Less you're going to have to worry about what the body is doing. So grab a club right now and make sure that you do have it in the grip. Make sure that in the fingers, make sure that you do have the right hand more in the fingers, and that V is pointing to your trail shoulder. The V is going this way and the V is going this way. But just try and monitor if you've got that trigger finger. It doesn't mean we're applying pressure here, it's there sort of following along for the ride, because we are kind of pulling it this way a little bit throughout the backswing. And I actually thought about this a couple of weeks ago, and it was maybe 11 o'clock at night, and I just grabbed a club. I was wearing my slippers, pajamas and things like this. I grabbed a club with it in my hands and had that memory of the book talking about just how important the grip was, that it didn't matter what else was going on, but it's like, here, this is my connection. And no matter what I do, all I have to ensure is that I slam the club face back on the ball, okay? So I'm here. It's all about the grip. I don't give a damn what the rest of the swing is feeling, but I have a positive intent through the ball. And it did wonders. I was hitting it out the middle every single time. And I was like, is this magic? No, it's just obvious. And I want you to try the same. Have that intent. Make sure your grip on every shot has purpose and you stick to it. And your consistency will be very noticeable. The next phase is ball position. Sounds boring, but it plays such a big factor. In teaching nowadays, majority of the time you are told to move the ball around depending on what club. Driver up here, 3-wood there, mid-irons back, wedges back. A problem is, way too many of you have the ball too far back. It's more predominant when we're hitting irons, but in driver, let me explain. Because if the ball is a little bit too far back, what can happen is the arms tend to sort of get stuck a little bit here, and your intent is to throw the hands and hit at the ball because we're a little bit stuck. If I'm exaggerating, we're sort of stuck here, right? What happens is, if you have the ball a bit more opposite your left foot, what it's doing is actually not just helping your angle of attack, but your center of gravity is moved this way, okay? So now all of a sudden we are a little bit more behind and we can hit up on the ball, okay? It plays real dividends because what happens is we're able to sort of rotate and get through just a little bit easier rather than getting stuck and hitting at it. So next time you're on the tee, put your feet together so the ball is in the middle of your stance, and then step to the right. And your center of gravity will be behind, and you'll have a lot more freedom to get through. Now I'm going to show you how it works on the irons. A general tendency is to have the ball too far back. Why? I think it generally comes from wanting to help the ball up in the air instead of trusting that we're striking down and through, okay? It's not always about going down, but it is certainly about going through, accelerating this way. And older golfers, you know, the legends, generally the way they used to play wedge shots, because everything was sort of just on the inside of the heel, like one club, the only variant they would do, whether it was a mid-iron or if it was a wedge, they would stand a little bit closer, okay, which is going to move that center of gravity a bit more sort of ahead of the ball rather than if we're moving this way, as we saw with the driver. So a narrower stance with a wedge and a little bit more open. So I'm going to move that foot forward just a hair, but I haven't actually moved the ball position. And what this is going to do, it's going to encourage me to stay ahead of it and rotate through and down. Because if we've got the ball too far back, even with a wedge, it's very easy to kind of get stuck this way. So as a little challenge to you, I want you to try and have the ball, and you can see with the alignment sticks, off your front heel a little bit more, okay? And what you should notice is a feeling of getting through and up instead of having to try and help the ball up. So we can just swing through with a lot more freedom and clip it off the top of the turf. That's with a wedge, and the same can apply to a mid-iron. The only difference is we are not going to move this foot forward, we're just going to keep the setup on that front heel here, okay? And I'm just standing a little bit wider. So now my center of gravity has moved back just a hair, but still dominating in front. So I can swing through and attack the ball and the correct angle. So give the ball position a try. Make sure that you've got this as the constant, and the only change is your trail foot to help that angle of attack. But hitting kind of down and through is where we come on to the next little tip, and it's all about the hip. What I'm about to show you from there is not just my derriere, it is one of the most effective, powerful moves for consistent contact. And it can be called falling into the swing, is one of the main keys that I give people. But what we're looking at is trying to actually get the trail hip at the sort of top of the backswing as we are moving back down, okay? As we're moving this way, the trail hip, right hip for me, is higher than the left. And if you look at a lot of these snapshots of some of the best players ever, you'll see that they are kind of about here, really loading in to that front side. That this hip is higher, and then it's falling down this way. What we'll see too often with players, you know, of all ages and all abilities really, especially around 15, 20 handicappers, there'll be this sort of over rotation this way, but then the lifting up here. So it's actually the opposite. So what happens is we get a little bit stuck, then the hands have to fire through to try and make contact, instead of this falling down where this hip is higher, so we can get the correct descent, especially with irons, to be able to strike the ball first and then the turf. Now, some of this comes from needing a good sort of hip rotation and getting into that hip. What you need to be wary of is being too flat this way, okay, or cheating a little bit. And what I mean is to try and get that tilt, okay, or that right hip, the trail hip a bit higher so you can descend and load into that front side. Don't cheat by straightening the leg, because if you see what I do here, I can get the right hip higher by straightening the leg this way, all right? But I haven't actually gotten any real rotation, and what can happen is I'm a bit stuck and I'm still going to go this way. All right, that's where it gets a little bit tricky. So most of you will have one of these, and if you don't, it doesn't really matter. But the objective I want you to have, all right, is make your sort of wind up in your backswing, and I want you to feel that the stick here, or your lead hip, is actually moving a little bit more towards the ball, kind of like down and around, okay? So it's going this way. That ensures that we've got enough turn to be able to fall into the swing. Fall this way, okay, with that trail hip higher, and we're striking down and through. It's a very, very powerful move. So that's the way you can train it, okay? You don't even have to hit shots. Just feel like you're winding up with that trail hip higher and then applying the pressure down and then clear out the way. It's a very short, simple move. But Arnold Palmer did it so beautifully well, and so can you. But I wager that if you apply even just one of those little tips like Arnold Palmer, you're going to be doing pretty well.